inside the 10. Carr dips it in and it's and he spins into the end zone for the touchdown. Watching greatness on one end in LeBron. There's a dude with 35 in white getting it done defensively and then offense taking over the fight. Mama, there goes that man.
They have shared a brilliant championship battle, but the championship can only be won by one, and it's going Dutch in 2021. Max Verstappen, for the first time ever, is champion of the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Waterboy Experience. I am your host, the Waterboy himself, Davis McLemore. And if you were expecting a long, drawn-out, packed episode, well, this week's not the week for you, and neither was last week because, yes, we did miss a week of recording, but that's basically because nothing happened. There was no racing, nothing's really happening in NFL, and it's a similar week this week, but we do have some racing to go over and discuss, and I believe we missed a couple things from last week, but here to help me catch us all back up here is the CEO and CFO of Nye Productions, the Red Bull chugging son of a gun, Mr. Jason Shaddix. Jason, how are you, bud?
Well, I am doing pretty good. I can't complain. I haven't had a Red Bull this last 10 minutes, so I am getting a little bit antsy. But other than that, I'm doing pretty damn well. But yes, you are right. We did miss some news, and we're going to cover that at the top of the hour.
About 12 minutes after the top of the hour, but, you know, we'll still cover it.
All right, so first off, I'd like to begin this episode by talking about the unfortunate passing of sprint car driver Justin Owen. Owen competed at the AM Soil Sprint Car National Championship, which was at Lawrenceburg Speedway in Indiana. During qualifying on Saturday night, Owens crashed into the outside wall near Turn 3, where his car flipped several times. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries and passed away at the age of 26. The USAC canceled the remainder of the event for that past weekend. And unfortunately, there was another person who passed away, and this time it was during this past week. World Rally Championship driver Craig Breen, who drove for Hyundai, unfortunately, he passed away during one of the car testings, and I don't know a lot of the details, but it's been felt everywhere in motorsports. All the major motorsport news outlets, all the teams have been talking about it, and two people passed away in each past week, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? This is like modern days. This is really unheard of. People don't pass away nowadays. Back in the 70s, 60s, even the 80s, yeah, motorsport was different back then. It was wilder. It was less strict on safety, and people unfortunately did pass away. We were actually just looking at a video of Niki Lauda when he had his accident at the Nuremberg ring, and it's made me think a lot in the last few days since all of this has come out.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, accidents do happen, but it's crazy that it happened twice in the span of, a week. So, as far as like Craig Breen, was it like a crash, like a big crash, or
I do believe so. I think it was one of those weird crashes that it's one of those 1 in a million. Like, you don't expect it to happen, and it happens. And a lot of drivers crash throughout the year. There's always big crashes. Recently, we've had Zhou Guanyu last year. We had his crash. I mean, we were just watching MotoGP, and oh man, those crashes those guys take, it's brutal. But, there's that one person who just draws the wrong end of the stick, and unfortunately, it happened for Craig.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many regulations, safety regulations, and Formula One, NASCAR, MotoGP, all that kind of stuff. But every now and then, just stuff slips through the cracks, and it really does suck. But anyway, moving on, you want to talk about, you had NASCAR news?
Yes, so this is from, again, the previous episode we missed, so about 2 weeks ago when the people will hear it. Basically what happened in NASCAR was they suspended indefinitely Cody Ware after he was arrested on April the 10th on a felony charge of assault by strangulation and a misdemeanor charge of assault on a female. As stated by the Iredell County, which is North Carolina, Sheriff's Office, his bond was set at $3,000. Ware had not participated during the weekend, and his team, Rick Ware Racing, which, by the way, The owner of the team is his own dad. Thought that was just curious. Anyway, the team said during the weekend that he had to sit out due to personal reasons. In his place was Truck Series driver Matt Crafton. And yeah, based on what the sheriff's office released on Monday, he was arrested on Sunday, the day of the race. So apparently he was going through something and, he had the weekend off and he got arrested. So it's an awful thing that it would happen to, the lady got strangulated because, even if you're having problems with somebody, you shouldn't strangle them or assault them in any form. So he's basically out of NASCAR and his career is done.
What is going on this week? These past 2 weeks?
It's a slow week, yet there's a lot of news that you're like, what the fuck? It was a weird past 2 weeks. But anyway, former Formula 2 and Alfa Romeo test driver Tatiana Calderon has announced that she will be returning to the European Endurance Championship, racing for the LMP2 team of Virage. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but yeah.
So is she I'm assuming she's at least a good driver, but by Formula 1 standards, she can't make it, is what you're saying.
By Formula 1 standards, by Formula 2 standards, by Formula 3 standards.
Wow.
Thing is, there's not a lot of women in motorsports, and I think that has to do just because, racing cars, that's a guy thing. Growing up, parents didn't buy you, Barbie dolls. They bought us toy cars, Hot Wheels. So women getting into motorsport is, don't want to call it a rare occurrence, but it's basically what it is. And since there's such a limited pool of women getting into motor racing, there's a very, very limited pool of good women in racing. I think the young lady who is basically the queen of single-seater racing at the moment is Jamie Chadwick, I believe her name was. And she's a W Series 2 or 3-time champion. And she was completely blowing the field away. And a lot of people said, oh, why doesn't she get a chance at Formula 1 or Formula 2? And the truth of the matter is, they gave her a shot at Formula 3, and she was not doing well. And if you can't make it in Formula 3, you're not going to make it in Formula 1. And it's unfortunate because she is good. It's just, she's not good enough. And it's not because she's a girl, it's just skill-wise, she's average. And for the limited amount of women that there is in single-seater racing and just racing in general, she is one of the best, but it's still not enough. And that's just mental if you think about it.
That shows you how good you have to be to even just be the best in Formula 3. So now that kind of puts into a different perspective. Look at Max Verstappen, how much better he is than every other motorsport world champion. You know what I mean?
Right now, he is the second best or the first best, depending on the car driver on the grid, because there's always Lewis Hamilton. Hell, you can put Fernando in there.
Yeah.
But quite funny enough, Max Verstappen is the number 3 sim driver in the world. He beats people who, their entire profession is being a sim racing driver. Yeah, he's one of the best, if not the best. So that shows that he is not only the best Formula 1 driver on the grid right now, but he's also one of the best in the simulators, which is crazy.
Good at racing fake cars, and he's good at racing real cars.
Exactly. But anyway, one more piece of previous week, 2 weeks ago, I don't even know what to call it anyway, news is that 2-time World Rally champion Marcus Grönholm, I apologize if I mispronounced that, which I did, is set to return to rallying at the end of May for the inaugural Mythical Cars Rally. The event will be held in Varsi, Italy. Grönholm will be racing in a 2007 Subaru Impreza. He will be paired alongside his former co-pilot, Timo... I'm not even going to pronounce that last name.
Let me try. Where's it at? Timo Rautiainen.
We're going to go with what Davis said. Well, that's his former co-pilot where he won his 2 world championships. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. Also, when I heard Mythical Car Rally, I'm like, what are Red and Link doing nowadays?
I was just about to say that. Red and Link, a race car team? That's cool.
Racing League.
Racing League, yeah.
Historic Racing League. So I thought that was really interesting. But anyway, let's move on to this past weekend. Super GT. So Japan's top racing car series, Super GT, is back with an interesting season opener in Okayama. Now, the Nissan C of Ronnie Quintarelli and Tsugio Matsuda, I know I pronounced that last name correctly, not the first one, they started on pole position. Now, Super GT, think about it like this. You take a Nissan GTR, for example, and you make the Super GT car resemble it, but the chassis, the engine, everything about it is completely different, but it still resembles that car. And that's basically Super GT, and it's better than GT3 racing or GTE Le Mans racing. It's just really great racing. But anyway, the Nissan C of those two ended up, being in pole position, followed by the sister Nissan C. And, they started in pole position and 1-2, and they took off, and they pretty much had the lead until about lap 17 when the wheel of a Nissan GTR, which that hurt me on a personal level, that a Nissan GTR failed, came loose, a safety car comes out, and then about a lap later, hail started falling onto the field. Now, that was a big, whoa, okay, this is pretty cool. I've never seen hail in a race event. But anyway, on lap 23, they restarted the race on a wet track. The Nissan Cs at this time were not doing so hot and started to fall into the back. Essentially, there's a tire war going on in Super GT. I know one of them is Michelin, which is the tires that the Nissan Cs were doing, and they weren't faring too well in the rain. In the dry, they're phenomenal, but not in the rain. So they were struggling a bit, and later on, the number 100 Stanley NSX got a whopping 60-second time penalty for pitting under full course caution. So I thought that was just, what the fuck, 60 seconds? I'm like, people complain in Formula 1, it's a 10-second stop and go penalty, and then in Super GT, it's like, no, we're going to give you a full fucking minute.
There's no chance of you coming back to win after a full minute. How many cars are on the grid in this league? Wasn't there 100 something?
No, there's probably around 20, maybe even 30 cars in the racing field. This is my first time watching it, and I'm not going to be up at 12 to watch this live, so I was watching the highlights. But there was a few cars there.
This racing league is not something I would wake up at 4 a.m. to watch. It's not. It felt kind of outlaw to me, wheels just falling off of cars. You get a full minute. You get to sit out, and I'm like, what the heck? And then it just starts hailing, and then everybody starts spinning out. It was weird.
I do not understand why they couldn't put those tires on right. That's the biggest thing. It's like you even said, it's like, why can't they put those tires on right?
And, it's racing tires, so they only have the one big lug nut in the middle. Formula 1 tires don't have that problem. Well, sometimes accidents happen, but not as frequently as this did. There was 4 or 5 times where the wheel just fell off.
In a single race, in the season opener, which, you know what? It makes for good racing. You have to admit that. It makes for really great racing. But anyway, later on, the race was red flag when lightning started striking around the track, and they were like, oh, okay, everybody stop. We're not going to race. At the restart of the race, and this is what you were talking about earlier, one of the tires for the Toyotas came not flying off, but it wasn't secure. The guy pitted, and then the front left wheelman put the tire on, and then he raised his hand up. I'm not sure what he was trying to say to the team, and then the car just peels off, and he's like, wait, fuck. And yeah, Toyota fucked themselves, and I'm like, holy shit, Toyota just did a Ferrari move. Tell me that is not something Ferrari would do.
That's absolutely something Ferrari would do. How much you want to bet that very next race, they're just not going to put Charles Leclerc's tire on all the way on?
How much you want to bet they're going to be like, we're not going to let them shame us in failing. All right, we're going to forget all of Charles Leclerc's tires.
I was out Ferrari'd, and I will never be out Ferrari'd again.
And then the next week, Toyota goes, all right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to forget the entire fucking car. There's not going to be a car.
and then the next Formula 1 race, nobody from Ferrari is going to show up.
That'll be the great race that Ferrari is really trying to win. Who can out Ferrari? Ferrari.
Honestly, you got to bet Ferrari has a better chance if nobody on the team even showed up.
Yeah. But anyway, so after that mishap, there was a bit of racing and they tried to restart, but unfortunately the rain just kept on coming harder and harder. And at the end they said, you know what? We've completed about 75% of the race. Let's call it a day. And this is the really interesting part. The Nissan Z's actually made a comeback, and when the race was stopped, they won the race. They were 1 and 2, exactly how they started. And I was like, well, fuck me silly. That is fucking cool. That the fact that they went all the way to the back or to the middle of the pack and they made their way back up. And they're like, yeah, we won. We're going to move on to a little bit of MotoGP news. So you and I just saw this. They were just in COTA, the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. And there was a lot of people there, including your favorite comedian of all time, the man you worship, Bill Burr. Billy Bitch Tits himself was there. What do you think about that?
I thought you were about to say Jerry Seinfeld was there. I was like, no way. But then you mentioned Billy Bitch Tits, and then I'm like, oh, come on. Yeah, I don't care about that. He can, it's just as long as he's enjoying himself, I guess. Just whatever.
What I really like about Bill Burr being there is that he's one of those celebrities who genuinely likes the racing, and he's going there for the racing and not just to do some PR stunt or something like that. Because remember, Brad Pitt was there last time. Shaquille O'Neal was there. That guy who named Charles Leclerc Chuck Leclerc. God, that guy was awful at it. But some interesting news about MotoGP. Our favorite driver, Alex Marquez, once again crashed out during the second sprint race. This time he actually had a valid reason. So essentially he was overtaking somebody. He went into a corner, and when he was braking, he vomited in his helmet. And Alex later on said he felt like his whole body collapsed, and he's like, I don't know what happened. I think it might have been something that I ate, but I kind of ate the same thing I usually ate, so I don't know what's going on. Because he also said, when I got back to the paddock, I ended up puking again. So hopefully he was good for the race on Sunday, which is the day we're recording, and I do believe who won the race, and I'm actually a little bit surprised about this, is Alex Rins.
Who is that guy?
I have no idea. He just won the race.
Well, good for him. But yeah, I mean, this other guy is only our favorite racer because of the amount of times that he crashes. Honestly, he's a little bit of a crash test dummy. But, you know, I was thinking like he might have thrown up from like being nauseous, like driving, which I wouldn't blame him because like it's driving a motorcycle. Those things they're going crazy fast. You got to lean. You almost make yourself parallel with the ground and then come back up. Like when I was watching, I was like, that's crazy to do that. But no, I hope he feels better and, you know, just keep doing it. Who'd you say won this last race?
So the one who won the sprint race, the second sprint race, was Francesco Bagnaia,
yeah. He's like their Max Verstappen.
Yeah, in a way, except he didn't win his race.
Well, yeah, you know, Max doesn't win every race.
Just like 99% of them.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, there's a little bit of a change up. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Carlos Sainz wins a race. You know, it just depends.
It's gotta be Fernando at this point. Like, how can it not be Fernando winning a race? Anyway, that was MotoGP. And now we're going to cover just a little bit of the 6 hours of Portimão. So, for those that don't know, this is the World Endurance Championship. So this is more like, how can these cars last for 6 hours racing in a row?
If you've heard us reference the 24 hours of Le Mans, that's their big race. But the 6 hours of Portimão is pretty big too. So
it's one of the few races they got. I think there's like 8 races, including Le Mans. But anyway, a big thing that went viral this past weekend was one of the support series car, which was a Porsche GT3 991. Essentially, they had a brake failure, and he ended up spinning the car, and he spun it backwards, and he rear-ended the catch fence where if you remember last year, Zhou Guan Yu was actually caught by the catch fence at Silverstone, but this time the catch fence failed and the car went through the catch fence into the grandstands. Luckily, there was nobody there, but somebody who was sitting close to it actually videoed the incident, and a lot of people were like, how the hell does that happen? And Portimão is one of those tracks where it's like Formula One grade. Yeah, I think that's what they call it. Essentially, it's safe enough for Formula One to race there. And since Formula One is the top of the top, that's a big honor. So this is a very safe track. Thank God there was nobody there during the second practice of the support series, because imagine if that hit somebody. Imagine if 3 weeks in a row we have to cover the deaths of people. That would be terrible. That would be terrible.
You'd be looking at a hefty lawsuit there.
Yes. Fortunately, the driver, Alexandre Aria, he didn't suffer any damage. And he's like, yeah, I'm glad nobody was there, because that was a really bad accident. And actually, the grandstands have been closed for that section while the FIA does an investigation of what the fuck went wrong. So that's something interesting that happened. The number 8 Toyota hypercar won pole position, and then it was followed by its sister car in P2. During the race, during the first hour, we saw some great action between the 94 Peugeot, and I know that's not how you pronounce it, but I'm doing the Jeremy Clarkson way. Peugeot and the number 2 Cadillac had some really great driving going on. And you saw this. Former Formula One champion Jacques Villeneuve brought out the first safety car of the day when his brake disc failed and completely broke off, and he ended up crashing into the barrier.
It essentially just like exploded. Like you could see it in the car, like just this big ball of fire inside the tire, and he just kind of backed into the wall there, and it was much less impactful than the previous crash we were talking about, but yeah.
It was still something. It was a pretty nasty shunt, but luckily he's fine. Unfortunately he didn't finish the race. So, and from everything that the people commenting on the clip, they were saying, well, this team is destined to never finish a fucking race or have a decent weekend.
Never.
But that was my nondescript motorsport news. Now, I do know that you have pretty much the only big news in NFL right now, right before the draft. And it is something that we talked about, I think, an episode or two ago. And it involves Davis's second favorite team, the Washington Commanders. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Who said that they were my second favorite team? They're one of my least favorite teams.
Well, I say it's your second favorite team just to piss you off. Although I should say that the Lions are not even the Lions anymore. It's the New Orleans Saints who are your second favorite team, because they've got, the Raiders' former great quarterback, Derek Carr. And then it's the Lions, and then at the end, it is the Commanders.
So there was a roughly $7 billion offer to buy the Washington Commanders.
So first off, the WWE gets sold for $9 billion, which is about $3 billion more than it's worth in the stock market, and about $5 billion more than it's actually worth. Actually more, if you think about it. And they just did the same thing with the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, the bid was made by the Washington, D.C. native Brian Davis. He would become the NFL's first African-American owner if the deal goes through. So that's pretty interesting.
And he's also the owner for the Philadelphia 76ers, right?
Yes, actually, that's correct. So, I don't know. It's pretty good. I think it would be good for him to buy it. I just think he's paying way too much for this team. You know how much I think this team should be?
$1.
Well, but roughly $1. That's an exaggeration, but $7 billion is way too much. What do you think?
I didn't know the guy was a Washington native, but if he's from Washington, D.C., right?
Yes, D.C.
If he's a Washington, D.C. native, that means we're never going to get that shitty team out of that fucking shitty state. Well, it's not even a fucking state. That's how shitty Washington, D.C. is. They don't even get the privilege of being...
A shitty district.
Exactly. The only good thing about the District of Columbia, all right, It's the fact that the White House is there, and apparently they decided that was the center of government when there was only 13 colonies, and now we're stuck with that team being there. Hopefully, at the very least, he comes up with a better name than the Washington Commanders, and he has a mascot that's actually worth a shit.
Oh no, he's probably going to keep the name the Commanders, so, and the uniforms and the likeness and everything like that. It's all going to probably stay the same, so.
Bloody bollocks. It's fucking ridiculous, mate. But other than that, is there any more NFL news? Is there any Raiders news, any big trades going on? Or is it just like racing has been for the last week? Silent. There is nothing.
There's really not much going on. I mean, the Raiders are doing the same thing they're usually doing. They're trading away people. They're signing, these nondescript Patriots players. It is what it is.
And we have a bit of an issue where the fact that Formula One won't return for another 2 weeks. So we may have to skip another week depending on how much racing news there is this coming week.
Hopefully something dramatic happens that we can cover and we can be like, holy shit, that's that.
Please, no more death.
No more death. No, I don't wish harm on anybody, but I'm talking like, I want something crazy to happen. Like Jesus came back in the middle of a MotoGP race and then got on a bike and raced. Probably unlikely, but
But we've been rambling on long enough. I don't know if the ramble we just did about movies will make it into the final cut, but I am Jason Shaddix, and this is Davis McLemore, and this is the Waterboy Experience. So sign us off, white boy. Yes, I'm doing it for God's sake.
You have to let me sign off.
All right. Let me rephrase that. All right. So we're done rambling. All right. Davis is a little bit butthurt that I didn't let him sign off correctly. So here is the jackass himself, Davis McLemore. Sign us off, white boy.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Waterboy Experience, and peace.
Second and goal just outside the 10. Tips it in, and it's Waller. He spins into the end zone for the touchdown.